Something was announced 4 days ago during the State of the Union that every single senior in this country needs to fully understand before they hear it misrepresented somewhere else. President Trump announced a new $1,000 federal account that he says will change retirement in America forever. But what the president said on Tuesday night and what his own Treasury Secretary said publicly about this same program are two very different things. And the gap between those two statements could mean everything for the future of your Social Security check. This update is for every retiree and senior on Social Security who heard the words $1,000 federal account and wants to know exactly what it is, who it is actually for, and most importantly, whether the quiet admission made by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is something you should be worried about. 5 days ago, I received a message from a 70-year-old retired factory supervisor named Vincent from Detroit, Michigan. Vincent worked the floor of an auto parts plant for 36 years. He told me he never had much faith in Wall Street. He watched coworkers lose chunks of their 401k savings in 2008 and decided back then that Social Security was the one thing he could count on because it was guaranteed, not subject to the market, not subject to a bad quarter or a crash stock. Guaranteed. He built his retirement plan around that guarantee and that word alone. Vincent watched the State of the Union on Tuesday night. He heard the president announce a new $1,000 federal account, and he told me he sat up a little straighter in his chair. He thought maybe this was something for him, something for seniors. He started doing the math in his head. Then he kept watching and started to realize this program was not exactly what he first thought. And then later in the week, his son called him and said, "Dad, did you hear what the Treasury Secretary said about that $1,000 account and Social Security?" Vincent had not. His son read him the quote, and Vincent sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, "So they are trying to do what I always feared they would try to do." Vincent sent me a message the next morning. He said, "I need someone to tell me what is actually going on here. Not the spin, not the talking points. Just the truth about whether my Social Security is safe." Before we go any further, please tap the like button right below this video. It helps this update reach other seniors like Vincent, who need the real story behind this announcement right now. All right, let us go through every piece of this carefully, because there are actually two separate programs being discussed, and they are getting jumbled together in a way that is creating real confusion. So let us separate them clearly. The first program is the one the president announced during the State of the Union on February 24th, specifically for workers who do not have access to an employer-matched retirement plan. That is about 56 million Americans, according to the National Institute on Retirement Security. Half the private sector workforce. People who have been locked out of the 401k system their entire careers, not because they made bad choices, but because their employers simply never offered one. Trump said during the speech, and these are his exact words, "Half of all working Americans still do not have access to a retirement plan with matching contributions from an employer." To remedy this gross disparity, I am announcing that next year, my administration will give these oft-forgotten American workers access to the same type of retirement plan offered to every federal worker. We will match your contribution with up to $1,000 each year. That plan is modeled after the Thrift Savings Plan, the TSP, which is the retirement savings vehicle available to federal employees and military members. It allows workers to invest in low-cost index funds, including the S&P 500, U.S. Treasury bonds, and a total stock market fund. The government match of up to $1,000 per year would be deposited directly into the account. According to AARP, this builds on an existing provision from the Bipartisan Secure 2.0 Act signed into law in 2022 called the Savers Match, which was already scheduled to take effect in 2027. Trump's proposal expands and accelerates that program. The White House said eligible workers would have a universal portable account they could take with them if they change jobs. Now, is this program for you if you are already retired and collecting Social Security? The honest answer is no. This is designed for people still in the workforce who have never had access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan. If you are already receiving Social Security benefits, this particular announcement does not change your monthly check and does not affect what you are currently receiving. But here is where this story takes a very significant turn. And this is the part Vincent's son called him about. The second program mentioned during the State of the Union is something entirely different. It is called Trump accounts. These are tax-advantaged investment accounts created under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act signed into law on July 4, 2025. Every baby born in the United States between January 1, 2025 and December 31, 2028 automatically receives a $1,000 deposit from the federal government into one of these accounts. Parents and other family members can contribute up to $5,000 per year on top of that. Major corporations have also pledged contributions, with Michael Dell alone pledging $6.25 billion. The funds are invested in U.S. stock market index funds and grow tax-deferred. The accounts cannot be accessed until the child turns 18. After age 18, penalty-free withdrawals are allowed for education expenses, buying a first home, or starting a business. After age 59 and a half, full retirement-style access kicks in. Trump said in the speech that with modest additional contributions, these accounts could grow to over $100,000 or more by the time a child turns 18. PolitiFact reviewed that claim and noted it is not guaranteed. It would require consistent market returns averaging around 10 to 12% annually for 18 consecutive years, and does not account for inflation or taxes on withdrawal. Possible under some scenarios, not guaranteed under any. Now here is the part that set off a national firestorm, and the part that directly concerns every senior watching this video right now. On the day after the State of the Union, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was speaking at an event hosted by Breitbart News. He was explaining the Trump Accounts program and talking about financial literacy. And then he said something that nobody expected. He said, and I am going to read you his exact words because they matter. In a way, it is a backdoor for privatizing Social Security. He kept going. He said, Social Security is a defined benefit plan paid out. To the extent that if all of a sudden these accounts grow, and you have hundreds of thousands of dollars for your retirement, that is a game changer. Let that land for a moment. The president's own Treasury Secretary publicly called a program in the president's signature law a backdoor for privatizing Social Security. Not a critic, not an opponent. The Treasury Secretary of the United States said it out loud at a public event. The reaction was immediate, and it came from every direction. AARP, which represents 38 million Americans over 50, released a statement within hours. AARP Senior Vice President John Hishta said, AARP condemns Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's endorsement of a backdoor to Social Security privatization. We have fought any and all efforts to privatize Social Security, and we will continue to. Max Richtman, President and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, said Trump should promptly denounce these comments. He said the American people do not want their hard-earned Social Security benefits handed over to Wall Street. Nancy Altman, President of Social Security Works, said this is a terrible idea. Unlike private savings, Social Security is a guaranteed earned benefit that you cannot outlive. It has stood strong through wars, recessions, and pandemics. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer went to the Senate floor and said, "You know what privatize means? It means you are in trouble, Mr. and Mrs. Senior Citizen." Bessent quickly tried to walk it back. He posted on X that night, saying Trump baby accounts are an additive benefit for future generations, which will supplement the sanctity of Social Security's guaranteed payments. He said on CNBC the next morning, "It is a complement, not a replacement." White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Thursday that the accounts will help supplement, not substitute Social Security, and that the administration is wholeheartedly committed to protecting Social Security. But here is what you need to understand as someone whose retirement depends on Social Security. The original statement was made at a public event by the Treasury Secretary of the United States. The walkback was a social media post made hours later after the blowback became national news. Actions speak louder than cleanup posts, and the actions taken toward the Social Security Administration over the past year tell a story of their own. Since early 2025, the SSA has been directed to cut its staff by approximately half. The Washington Post reported that SSA leadership received instructions to produce rapid plans for cutting thousands of positions. The agency had already been operating at a 50-year staffing low before those cuts began. Wait times for basic services have increased significantly. Some in-person offices have seen reduced hours. Phone hold times have grown longer. And starting mid-2025, seniors could no longer handle several routine tasks by phone that they had been able to do for decades. They were required to go in person or online instead. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick added fuel in March 2025 when he said seniors would not complain if they missed a Social Security check. Elon Musk, during his Doge period, called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. These are statements made by people inside or closely connected to this administration. None of this means Social Security is ending tomorrow. It does not. The program is not going away. Payroll taxes keep coming in every single week from every working American. According to AARP, even if the trust fund depletes in late 2032, as now projected by the SSA's own chief actuary, the program can still pay roughly 80% of benefits from ongoing payroll tax revenue. Congress has the ability to act before that deadline and has done so before, most notably in 1983 under President Reagan. But here is the honest reality that Vincent from Detroit deserves to hear. The combination of a Treasury Secretary calling a new program a backdoor to privatizing Social Security, a trust fund depletion date now projected at late 2032, staffing cuts at the SSA, and no publicly released plan from the administration to close the funding gap is not nothing. It is a set of facts that every retiree and near retiree should be tracking carefully. What should you do right now as a senior or retiree? First, do not panic. Your current Social Security check is not being changed today. Not this week, not this month. The program is paying and will continue paying. Second, log into your My Social Security account at ssa.gov right now and verify your payment history and your direct deposit information. With staffing reductions at the SSA, getting errors corrected is taking longer than it used to. If something is wrong in your record, you want to find it now before it becomes a problem. Third, if you are not yet collecting Social Security and you have the financial ability to wait past 62, understand that every year you delay increases your permanent monthly benefit. At age 70, your benefit is 77% higher than if you claimed at 62. A larger base benefit means any future adjustment hits you for less real money. Fourth, pay attention to what Congress does or does not do over the next 2 to 3 years. The 2032 depletion date will force a legislative conversation. The question is whether Congress acts early enough to protect full benefits or waits until a crisis forces a painful compromise. That is a political fight worth watching and worth contacting your representatives about. And fifth, if you have grandchildren or great-grandchildren born between 2025 and 2028, they are automatically entitled to a Trump account with a $1,000 federal deposit. You do not need to do anything to claim it for them, but you can add up to $5,000 per year of additional contributions. The enrollment is at trumpaccounts.gov or through IRS Form 4547. Whether you think the program is a good idea or not, That $1,000 federal deposit belongs to your grandchild, and it grows tax-deferred for decades. If you are not yet subscribed to U.S. Pension Insight, please hit that subscribe button right now. It is completely free, and this channel exists to give you the truth that affects your money. Here is where everything stands right now. President Trump announced a new TSP-style federal retirement account with up to $1,000 in annual government matching for workers without employer retirement plans, scheduled to launch next year. That program is for working Americans, not current retirees. Trump accounts are separate investment accounts seeded with $1,000 from the government for babies born between 2025 and 2028. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called them a backdoor for privatizing Social Security, before walking back that statement after major blowback from AARP, Democrats, and senior advocacy groups. The SSA Trust Fund is projected to deplete in late 2032. No administration plan to close that gap has been announced. Vincent from Detroit sent me one final message. He said, "I still believe in Social Security, but I am watching." That is exactly the right position. Stay subscribed. I will see you in the next update.